it was really, really early childhood. When I was in I think I was like 10 years old when I started to do my 5 a.m. workouts. Um, and 5 a.m. I did because that's when nobody was out or up and nobody could see me running because I was so ashamed of the way I was running for whatever reason. It was either me being slow or I was like, oh, I don't look like a runner or whatever. That I literally for years I would be waking up at like 5 a.m. just to do workouts early. And it wasn't because I was like 5 a.m. club. That's the only time that I knew that there was nobody out.
I mean, for me, from the side, I just thought you're a masochist. I remember in high school with you, it's like I barely woken up, arrive at school. She's like, oh yeah, they had my 5 a.m. workout. I finished the homeworks. Here I am.
Oh, really? That's interesting. All right. Hello. We are back, or I can't say we because this is your first time ever doing any kind of podcasts. Um, I am back with podcasting after how long has it been? Year and a half. And it was a journey to get here. And my lovely co-host Cindy, which is probably at this point like top two closest people I have. And like you've been seeing a lot of behind the scenes with the 70.3 Ironman and a lot of stuff on top of it. And I felt like it was a good idea to get you on this episode. Because first of all, I kept postponing recording it for various reasons. And and I also, as I was thinking about it, I felt like you could be a good addition in adding some of your perspectives of what you saw with like me going through my journey or things that I would share with you. Because I can give you an example with the conversation we had one time in the gym that I was like, whoa, I don't know if you remember that one. You probably will. When I said to you that when I was training for my first half marathon, I I was like, because I was like out of shape and I was thinking like everybody's judging me for like somebody at some point gonna ask me like, aren't you like too fat to do like half marathon? That was my thought. And you told to me, what is it? You said that it didn't even cross my mind. I was like, oh, she's probably gonna be busy for like a few months. So I kind of like it's something that you need to keep in mind. Which I think in that moment, I was like, what? Like, and I think that's why it's valuable to have you here as well, because I think you can have some perspectives of kind of like bring the story a bit more together, where it's not just in my mind. It's also like other perspectives from the side. But yeah, welcome, Cindy. How are you feeling with your first co-host experience?
Thank you, thank you. No pressure, right? From all what you said. No, I mean, I hope I am helpful
Oh yeah, for
in
sure.
that sense. Um, yeah, I agree on you postponing it. I remember you talked about this for months. And then
If
for the
not like
context
last
for
year.
everyone, she wrote me day before this happening. Not even 24 hours have passed when she wrote, hey, can you be in a podcast with me? And I was like, oh, yeah, sure, I can try my best. She's like, yeah, it needs to come out this week on Thursday. So literally in 2 days. So basically choose between tomorrow and day after tomorrow. I would say I haven't had enough mental prep for this, but yeah, I have some questions. I have a list of them. So I think it goes well.
Which tells you a lot about the friends that I have, you know, willing to go on the ride with me, which I'm like super thankful for. So I think one thing that we could start with is kind of story behind how I even got to the thought of the Ironman. Because and it gonna tie also into the kind of like the podcast title and kind of my idea behind the podcast. Especially the word impossible. So For me, for the longest time, and it's literally years, I actually felt like anything Ironman triathlon is impossible for me. Like back in UK, when I was studying there, I went to like personal trainer courses, and there was a one person there that also was in the course, and we kind of got this interesting barter deal where like I would make a program for him, um, and once a week he would come to the city, and we would go to the gym, and I would be training him, and in exchange he would do meal prep for me. So that day when we meet up, he would like give me the meal prep because I was like, I struggle with like meal prepping and consistency with it, and he was like, oh, we could do this deal, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I started to research that, and I was like, oh, it would be so cool if I could do triathlon, but I can't run. That was literally my thought. Like, and there's like duathlons or something like that where like you can swim and bike, but no running. But for me, I was like, yeah, it doesn't count kind of thing. So I was like, I wish I could do it, but like I can't run. And that's coming like years from like my past where I would even like in basketball when I was training basketball, when we would go for runs, I would always be behind, or I would always feel like I'm the slow one, and even like it was really really early childhood when I was in I think I was like 10 years old when I started to do my 5 a.m. workouts. And 5 a.m. I did because that's when nobody was out or up and nobody could see me running because I was so ashamed of the way I was running for whatever reason. It was either me being slow or I was like, oh, I don't look like a runner or whatever. That I literally for years I would be waking up at like 5 a.m. just to do workouts early. And it wasn't because I was like 5 a.m. club. That's the only time that I knew that there was nobody out.
I mean, for me, from the side, I just thought you're a masochist. I remember in high school with you, it's like I barely woken up, arrive at school, just like, oh yeah, they had my 5 a.m. workout. I finished the homeworks. Here I am.
Oh, really? That's interesting. Yeah, I was definitely doing the workout still. Okay, for information, how long we know each other?
I kind of thought that this will come up. I was trying to calculate,
I think
but
last time we talked after Tony Robbins, it was 11 years. So it might be 12 years now.
I think it's 12. Yes,
Yeah,
12-ish.
so Cindy has known me for a while. Somehow we're still friends.
Although I don't wake up at 5 a.m. usually.
I mean, me too. Not now. I didn't want to get back to it though. But yeah, so like with that, that's how my like running experience started. And even like with basketball, I was training for a few months in javelin, and that's when I started to get some like back pain. And I would go to doctors. Nobody really gave me like any conclusions that were like clear. But I remember so clearly, like one doctor told me, "Don't run. You can't be running." And I was like, "Oh shit, I can't be running." Like if doctor tells you you can't be running, so that added on top of it that like a doctor told me not to run. So for years, I didn't run. And I think the first time I did run was one time when I was running towards a bus when I was late. I was like, oh, I don't want to miss it. Like I'm gonna be late, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to do like running towards it. And I was like, oh, my back actually is like fine. And that was the first time that I started to be open to at least running. But when it comes to long distances, I didn't start doing anything with them until last year at the around May time, I think last year. Um, because I watched movie Brittany Runs Marathon. I remember like I was watching that movie, and at the end of the movie, I was like, well, if she can do it, I can as well. So I literally went online. I found 6 month program. And by the way, Cindy, in a minute you're gonna come in the story. So I found that program and I just created like document and I started training. Um, and the first workout literally was you run 1 minute, walk 4 minutes, and do it 3 times. I was overachiever, so I did it 4 times. But it was hard. Like it actually felt really hard. Like I hadn't run in a long time. Um, and then that the first half marathon actually happened because of you, because you reached out to me and you said that your cousin wanted to run half marathon. And the interesting piece about it is that exactly on that date, I had in my program half marathon distance. And I was like, no, I so didn't want to sign up. But I was like, well, if it's like kind of aligning, I still will have to do that distance in my program anyways. I might as well kind of sign up for it. I remember I felt so scared because I have never done that distance. And it wasn't like too far out. I think it was like,
We had summer because the race was in September.
yeah,
So we had like 2 months or like best 3 months, but I think more 2 months something when you started to prep.
yeah, I think it was 3 months, but I went to Tony Robbins. I got sick, so that got me out for like 2 weeks. Then there was like, oh, there was at least one lazy week where I just didn't do anything. So I think when I calculated, I actually prepared for it only like 2 months total, with like the days or weeks out. And week before the race, uh, oh, and actually, what happened is you didn't end up running it.
Yes, because
you
I felt sick.
you get sick. And like you wanted to run a relay race with him. And that's kind of where that idea came from. And I was like, come on, you sign up. I kind of follow your lead. I sign up with you. And now I'm the one that has to run. And like with that half marathon, so a week before the race, the deadline is 3 hours. And in the rules, it says like if you don't finish within like 3 hours, you don't get the medal. And I was like, I so want the medal. Week before was the first time that I ever done that distance, and I did it in 3 hours, 24 minutes, I think. So I'm 24 minutes over. And for anybody like listening or watching, like it's really slow. Like for any like running stuff, like it's slow pace. So what happened was I so remember like I was on a bus towards the race, and I was like, what if I just don't do it? Like it's like nobody gonna know, or like I think I wasn't posting about it online, so I was like, there's only a few people that know, like nobody can know. That those are the thoughts that were like happening in my mind. And I also like there was some fear about it, and once I started the race. Of course, I went too far too soon because everybody around you is flying and you're like, I have to keep up. So I was like tired quick. And it ended up being two of us at the end, me and another guy from Germany, I think. So for me, I had been running for, I think we were talking like, he said like, I haven't been running for 6 months. He started running in his 40s, and he was like, I haven't been running for 6 months. And I just decided to sign up with my friends. And for me, I was like, I have been running for 6 months and I decided to sign up. We were two of us at the end. I finished second to last. And usually I would have like a lot of shame response about it, but this time I was like, I was even joking with him. I was like, imagine the whole city shut down just for us. We're like royalties kind of thing. And it was really good reflection point for me about the change in the mindset, or maybe how I perceive myself, or even like what is failure. And I remember that I told you even before that race that if I end up finishing half marathon, most likely I'm gonna do half Ironman. Um, I remember I was telling you that, and I don't remember your response. Do you remember it?
I mean, probably I was not too surprised about it. Usually, when you
Right,
say
yeah.
something like that, I'm like, yeah, makes sense. And especially because you've been reading Goggins, so I've been kind of expecting you
Oh,
that you will like once you start, then like it's just gonna go up. So when you said that first, you said that you're thinking about half Ironman, and then you also signed up for another half marathon soon after. And I was like, yeah, of course. Like
okay, yeah. I think
it's just the
that's what you
beginning.
said, that you're not surprised,
Yes.
or like you wouldn't be surprised if I did that. Which for me, I was like, really? Because there's still like there. I think there's, and that's like a big lesson. Um, for me, and even like for people listening, you can take that away, where like you don't have to believe that you can do something to do it. because like I didn't really have that belief that I, especially then, that I it felt so far-fetched, even like thinking about it. It was even scary to tell tell you like because in my mind I'm like, oh, if I tell it then it becomes real kind of thing. But yeah, that's what you said. Like you were like, and that's something that I'm like, even like thankful that you have those responses because in my mind I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's such a big. You're like, yeah, of course, like you can. It's like I'm not surprised, kind of thing. Which is like, I think that's what we do a lot in life. We have this one image of us, which a lot of times can be limiting, or we don't see the full picture. And it's valuable to have people around us that are able to, even like through their responses to something like like that, or that kind of comment that you said about me thinking about like everybody. I was waiting for somebody to say like, "Aren't you too fat to like do half marathons?" And you were like, it didn't even like cross my mind. Like, and I was here sitting and thinking like, okay, who is gonna take the courage to call me out, kind of thing. Nobody was even thinking about it. Um, or like one of my friends said that she was actually thinking like I couldn't do it, and I was like, that's it? Like what? So it's viable to have people around us that can give some like perspective or sometimes also call us out, which is super valuable. So after I finished that one, I went on and got super lazy running, of course, because I was like, that was a lot. Uh, and I think I signed up for the half marathon in where was it? Madrid. 2 months before because I was like I kept postponing the running and the training. I was like I don't want to do it. Um, and then when it was like 2 months, I'm like okay, I have to get my shit together. I have to I have to actually start doing some training. And I remember when I was in Andorra. So I first went to Andorra and then I went to Spain. I was there and I was like I want to go and I found a hike that was like 4 hours. And by the way, the biggest hike that I have ever done is 40 minutes. And then I was like, I told myself, if I gonna finish this hike, I'm gonna go and run half marathon. That was kind of my deal. And I actually had, I think I had drafted an email to send them with being like, hey, I got injured. I don't think I will be able to do it, kind of thing. I wasn't injured. I was just scared. Um, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go on this. And oh no, actually, I had sent it. I remember I sent it and then I was like, okay, that's kind of my way out. Even though I wasn't injured. So I went on the hike. It ended up being the whole half marathon distance. It took me, how long was it? I think it was like at least 6 hours, 8 hours, something like that. I was exhausted the whole time. And it was really, really good experience. And by the time I got back, I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm doing it. And I remember I emailed them. I'm like, actually, yeah. Because I was thinking like, if I can hike half marathon going like steep ways up and still somehow get back and be alive, I probably can figure out how to do half marathon next week. And I
I'm
had
still
enough.
fascinated by the email. I didn't know about the
Oh, okay,
email.
yeah.
I don't remember about, I mean, I remember you having doubts and you talking about you will go on the hike, but I don't remember the email part. And
I probably
I
didn't
just
tell you
would
that.
love to see the conversation. Like, actually, I recovered. It's not as bad.
Yeah. Wait, I could look if I can find that email because I think I sent it. Um, or yeah, it probably was like, oh, yeah, if it was that example, I know that email was in the picture for sure. And I do have a memory of me kind of following up to them, being like, actually, um, yeah. And I think it was that half marathon. Because then once I got back, I was like, there's like 3 more weeks until half marathon in Latvia, and I was like, oh, I could do that one, and I think that's where I started like 75 hard as well. And there was something about that half marathon that was terrible. Like well the first thing was the biggest thing was the heat. It was terrible heat. It was like 30 plus degrees Celsius. Um, it was to the level where they had water hoses that you could run through and like get. like a water all over you. Um, and uh, and it was really hard one. And that was the first race when I had like the watch, and I my heart rate was like super high, like zone 5, which is like what you usually have when you're like sprinting or like high intensity, pretty much the whole race. Um, and So I finished that one, felt good about it, and I think it was 1 or 2 days after that I signed up for the half Ironman. And that's where I was really debating with myself. I was like, do I sign up? Do I don't sign up? I kind of knew that it's gonna happen, but I was like, it's 90 days and like it's not much time. I didn't have a bike, kind of for background of my experience with triathlons. Never done triathlon ever. I had like background in swimming. I was swimming as a kid. But that's about it. Like we would do like together, we would go like once a week, go swimming, but it was like kind of like chill swimming, like no like proper like let's train. We would just like go for a swim. Um with cycling, I would be like cycling on my bike, but like I'm not the pro cyclist. Running, I started running at that point, I think 9 months or like maybe like a year ago. And it wasn't consistent running. It's like sporadic. Train for the race and then you're like, I'm done. Um, and I had never cycled on a road bike. Never done that. Never done open water swimming with like the swimsuit stuff like that. Um, what else hadn't I done? No transitions, haven't learned any of that. No experience with like training programs or, none of that. Um, and I think the scary piece was, and I took picture after I signed up, and I think I sent it to you as well. It was like you're signing a document that says like you might die, and you like I acknowledge that I'm taking responsibility for a potential uh, likelihood or potential situation where I might die. And that's when I was like, oh shit, this is like serious. And usually it takes like 6 to 8 months to train for it. I had 90 days. And I wasn't in, I think my biggest mental block was like I wasn't in peak shape. I was like out of shape. And I would even like I personally would describe myself as being fat at that point. But that's compared probably to my like standards. And What happened next? So that's when I remember I posted about it and I was like, it's it was an interesting experience. Even like to sign up because that's when it became real. Like it now it wasn't just a thought anymore, it was a reality. Um and I think even like with this, the link to the title of the podcast, um, it is Chase the Impossible with the idea that for me, for the longest time, it felt impossible. And even at that moment when I signed up, like I didn't know if it was possible. Now at this point, like everybody listening, you know that I finished it, and like, but but for years I felt like I didn't even consider doing it because I felt like it's impossible for me. I can't do it. It's one of the things that I just gonna die without ever having done because I just can't run. That was kind of the story that I had. Um, and then once it started to become a possibility, I was like, okay, maybe there's a way how it could be done. But I still didn't think that it was like, it's weird because I think it's hard to think that something is possible if you have never done it. I can just like speculate about how possible it is, but I had never done it. Um, so the idea is that like with chasing the impossible, it's like, and it's something that I feel like I have been doing for especially like last 2, 3 years maybe, is like I would identify something that I would feel impossible for me or like really hard, and then I would try to kind of like get to it or like yeah, find a way to sort it out, or even like see if it's possible. Kind of approach it a bit more with like curiosity, and that's something that has led me to like some really interesting experience, a lot of life lessons, and it's kind of my hope to encourage others to do the same, to kind of like get out there, live your life, don't be afraid, don't try to limit yourself too much. And if you're limiting to yourself, still act despite trying to limit yourself. And yeah, so like that was me. That was, I think now we're like to the point where like I have signed up. I'm signed
Yes.
up and I'm like, oh shit.
I mean, I think I still would like to know more, like from the idea to committing it, how long it took. Because you said you had the thought about triathlon for like already when you were in UK, so it has been in the back of the mind. But when did you were like, okay, Ironman is the place, and this is it. Like this is the year, because I know you sometimes researched where you want to do it, if you want to do it in Estonia and things like that, but I don't really remember the timeline. I remember you signing up when it actually happened, you sending,
Yeah.
but you kind of had dropped it in between. So when did you feel like, okay, I have this idea, and now I will commit it?
I think having an idea to actually me doing it, like becoming aware of the Ironman was probably 7, 8 years, just becoming aware of it. And having that thought of like, oh, I wish, but I can't. There, I don't know what exactly, but there was something appealing about the thought of it. I don't know what exactly, but I was like, oh, it would be so cool, but I can't run. But I think having an idea, well, I started to have ideas. I think when I said to you that if I finish this half marathon, I might look at like half Ironman. Or I think what I said is that half Ironman will become a possibility because then I will have finished the only distance that I felt I can't do or that was stopping me from doing the half Ironman. But I think from actually doing it and committing it, it might actually have been a few days, if not 24 hours. Because I think it was after I finished that uh, last half marathon, um, I something about the idea of trying to get it done in 90 days was scary but exciting for me. And I think I didn't want to, I think the first one I wanted to do in Estonia. And in my mind, I didn't want to wait like another year to do it. And I think that's where for me, I was like, I might just like pull the plug and go with it. And I think that decision probably took me less than like 24 hours because I think I ran the half marathon on Sunday and I signed up on Tuesday for half Ironman. So the window probably was like really small between like the idea of actually doing it and then signing up. Because one thing that I have learned is if I give myself too much space to think, I'm probably gonna think myself out of it.
Yeah, yeah, like not overthinking it.
So yeah, it was really small window.